And she had the intern do it. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of Town Government and Assistance Board. To my left is Vincent Pizzulli, attorney to the board. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. And to his left is Dave Barnes, assistant planning director. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances. And it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise, accurate information so we as a board can make decisions based on the facts that you present here tonight. We as a board must consider the 5 following conditions, and they're listed here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you will be asked to go to the podium where you will state your name and address for the record and proceed to tell us why you need the variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given 1 opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow, or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have some adjournments. The first adjournment is case 18082, Lorner Lane. Anybody here for that case? That has been adjourned to January 22nd. The next case is case 18085, Aldrich Management. Anyone here for that case? That case has been adjourned to February 12th. And the next case is case 18086, Matthew Cameron. Anyone here for that case? That has been adjourned to February 26th. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda is case number 18079, Cindy and Roy Kern, 433 Riviera Drive, Kings Park. The location of the property is the east side of Riviera Drive, 416 feet north of St. John Lynn Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to add to a non-conforming structure to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 16 feet and minimum side yard from 12 feet to 4 feet for an existing 163 square foot first floor addition. Reduce the rear yard from 35 feet to 11 feet, it is existing at 22 feet, for an existing 410 square foot first floor addition. Reduce the distance to any lot line from 2 feet to 0 for a 125 square foot existing shed. Reduce the front yard from 25 feet to 15 feet for a 75 square foot existing shed. Reduce the front yard from 25 feet to 4 feet for an existing 6-foot fence. Permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is less than 10 feet. Permit structures within 100 feet from wetlands and increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 100%.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. As you can see, on the board here, the survey of this particular piece of property is probably one of the most odd-shaped pieces in San Remo, and San Remo has a few odd-shaped pieces. As you can see, it's pie-shaped, and it has a total of about 11,000 square feet, but most of it violates side and rear yards and front yards. You can see by the survey that submitted to you and the one that's on the board here that the blue depicts the two additions that were made to the subject property, and the, I guess that's sort of a dark pink, shows the two sheds that were also added to the property. Initially, this property was purchased by Mr. Kern, and the initial building, original building, was CO'd in about 1940-41. Now, you got to remember that in those days we didn't have the area zoning that we have today. It was density zoning, and density zoning permitted a lot of things that obviously we don't permit today. But you can see from the location of the original building that it was put smack in the middle of the property. And again, because of the pizza-shaped slice here, anything that would be put on the property, whether it's a shed or an addition, would violate side, rear, or backyards. In order to make this house habitable, Mr. Kern had to do a tremendous amount of work. He had to add those two additions, otherwise it really wouldn't have made sense for anybody to live there. Again, the pie shape of the property doesn't permit very much to be done without variances. Now, this is an aerial view which you have also in your packet, and we think that the variances do not have an adverse effect on the character of the area. A lot of San Remo is on smaller lots, and why? Because in the years, many years ago, the map of San Remo was developed during a time when, first of all, there was no zoning, about 1912, 1915, and the first zoning that came in 1932 was, as I said, it was density zoning, and the requirements were much, much more different and less difficult to build on. So you could have built on a 40-foot lot as long as you put up dwellings that didn't violate the number of dwellings in the map. And so density zoning might have said in an acre of property you could put up 20 houses or 20 buildings. So anyway, that's the way this piece of property was developed. Initially, it probably was a summer home, and the people came out from the city and enjoyed the river, which, as you know, is, and you can see here from the survey that the Nessequag River is right across the street, and obviously Riviera Drive is on the river. So when Mr. Kern first got the house, he knew that these things had to be done, and he did them. Should he have applied for a permit? Yes. He didn't. The variances, as I said, really don't have any adverse effect on the character of the area. I'll show you the floor plan on the other side. This is, the blue is where they did the additions. I don't show the sheds here, but as you can see, where we have prior first floor plan, it was almost an impossibility to live. The bedrooms, I think, are very small. So these additions were necessary. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant could have been achieved by some other method. I'd venture to say that on this property, this is about the only way you could develop it to make a livable area with these structures on a approximately 11,000 square feet. But again, when you look at it, it's really not a usable 11,000 square feet. It's a lot less than that because we have front yards. We have a front yard. You can see it, the pizza pie slice in the back. That's all a front yard, so you'd have to conform, and you couldn't really. And that's why when the original structure was built, that structure conformed to the density zoning where they didn't have these type of requirements that we have today. You'll notice also that the two additions are in the back of the house and really don't have any adverse effect or minimal effect on surrounding properties. Again, the sheds are, I guess, the only place where you could put sheds. And why does Mr. Kern have sheds? Because the water table is probably about 3 or 4 feet, and you certainly couldn't have a basement even if he wanted it with the new additions. The area and the variance, is it substantial? No, I don't think in this case, because the way this lot is a very unique lot. I don't think there's another one like it in San Remo. So when you look at this lot and the amount of square footage that's ultimately been done by these additions is still minimal in comparison to even houses, small houses in San Remo. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions. The house with the additions have been there for a number of years. There is an application pending before the state DEC, which we believe will have a permit for it shortly. The DEC had to be notified when you do any work or you've done work close to the river. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, well, I guess you could say it was. However, there really was no choice here. The only other choice would be, and even if you knock down the building and you start it all over, unless you built the curved building to follow the curve of the road, I don't know how you could meet any of the setback requirements that we have today. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. I have Mr. Kern here if you have any questions. I also have his architect. Thank you.
The property to the east of your clients, that's town property?
Yes.
Whose fence is that?
We put up the fence. There is a gateway for access. Here it is over here. However, whatever the board wants, we'll do. If you want us to take it down, we'll take it down. It was mainly put up for security, for the Kern property. However, I understand the concern.
Yeah.
that
It
the
appears
board-
to have like playground equipment in it. And then the shed to the southeast, the concrete pad is also on town property.
Yes, you're right, correct. Whatever the board's requirements are, obviously, we will do. One of the suggestions I would have, and of course, that's up to you folks on the board and maybe the town board, we could put a fence in, a gate in the front of the property, and everybody would have access to it. I think the town property there is what they call, the town planners have called, I don't know about this one particularly, but it's like a passive area. It's the swings and play equipment are my clients, they're not the town's, and again, we'll remove them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the board have any other questions? No, thanks. Planning?
Just one comment for you, Mr. Chairman. I think everything else has been covered by Mr. Tramarko and yourself regarding the variance requests and the encroachments onto the town property. While I was reading the ad for the variance case, it occurred to me that there may be a variance actually missing. The property is located within the LWRP because it's directly across the street from the river, and the LWRP requires certain limitation on floor area with respect to what kind of impact it feels it may have on the river. And in this case, in the R10 zoning district, you're required or you're allowed a maximum of 25% floor area. And in this case, the floor area is going from 30% to 100%, and there's no request to increase the amount of floor area within the LWRP. It's something that we'll have to discuss tomorrow morning.
All right.
That would be a call of the building department. They set the denials. I'm not disputing what Mr. Donadio says, but it certainly comes at a late date. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, please. Good evening. Could you state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give your address, please?
David O'Connell, DAVID-OCONNELL, 92 Riviera Drive and 421 Riviera Drive. My two dwellings are within 200 feet of these applications. One of my dwellings is immediately abutting this property. My property at 421 is abutting the Smithtown property that has a very large bamboo grove that's at the property line and uncontrolled. It's not taken care of, and I'm concerned that there's a fire hazard, that that this construction was done by the applicant without building code, electrical inspections, and I need a fire break between the properties. If allowed, these variances set a new precedence in town of Smithtown. If allowed, these variances have an adverse effect and permit already constructed structures without the benefit of building code and electrical inspections to cause a fire hazard dangerously close to town of Smithtown and Suffolk County properties that have bamboo groves at the property lines that are in violation of town of Smithtown bamboo ordinance. There needs to be a fire break between the applicant's structures and the town of Smithtown and county properties with the bamboo to protect the two occupied dwellings at 421 and 92 Riviera Drive. Are there any questions?
Is the bamboo on the property line of
If you
south
go-
property line?
Yes, the southwest corner.
Southwest corner.
There's an L-shaped part of the town property that one of the think it's called an accessory structure, is at the property line. That, I believe, is a heated structure that has an oil tank in it that heats the, it's detached from the building and it supplies fuel to the building. I'm concerned that that in itself also poses a fire hazard because there's no inspection, no plumbing, no electrical, and that's at 0 feet from my property line. Any other questions?
No, that was it. Thank you. I think someone else wanted to speak. Come on up, please.
So I just want to finish in saying
Oh.
I'm asking for an unfavorable disposition of the zoning board of these variances.
All right, thank you. Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening, hi. My name is Steve Fidelli. I live at 147 Alder Drive in Kings Park.
Spell your last name, please, for the record.
Sure. Fanelli.
Thank you.
Okay. Basically, I just live in the neighborhood. I'll be honest, I drive down Riviera probably about 100 times a day. That particular property, as the gentleman who was speaking earlier said, it's a poor location for the property, and it just doesn't have the potential to expand or not. I know that the structures that are there, I'll be honest, I don't know the details of what's in the yard and stuff, but I do drive past it consistently. And it's nothing obtrusive on the neighborhood. It's looked that way for as long as I can remember living here. I do remember that the bamboo on that corner was tremendous, actually. I know some of the highway guys used to call it like Tokyo Road or something like that with all the bamboo that was there. And there is bamboo in the San Remo area, which I also believe needs to be controlled because it will expand and destroy the area. But as far as, bamboo in that area, I believe most of it's actually on town property, but I don't know. But I just wanted to say that the house itself is not obtrusive to the area and just appears to be like any other house in San Remo. They're all kind of pieced together.
Right.
That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Anyone else? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Silke, S-I-L-K-E. I also live in San Remo, been there 14 years. And if any of you know San Remo, it's basically a community that was built on bungalows. It was a huge bungalow community, and the people that reside there full-time now built their houses from the start of the bungalow. And where that house is, it's as you turn a corner. So it's like, it's impossible for it to be necessarily straight, if you will. So it kind of adds to what San Remo is. It was a bungalow, and to live there with a family, you kind of had to do something. Can't build up, I'm sure. And the expense of building up is probably astronomical. But there isn't, from the street and from everything that was done in the back, nothing is an eyesore. You can't see anything that would, you don't look at the house and say, ooh, what did they do? You don't even realize anything was done. You don't even see it. It's a very clean property. There's no issues on that, when they were talking about that fenced-in area. It's clean. It's assuming just to kind of make it look nice or have, to be able to sit outside. But I don't understand why, what they did in the back wouldn't be okay. Because it doesn't affect anything.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Di Fonseca. I live in San Remo. I'm also the architect working on the job.
Could you spell your last name?
Carlos Di Fonseca, D-E-F-O-N-S-E-C-A, 12510 Queens Boulevard, New York. I'm a registered architect.
Thank you.
And, looking at the property, I must tell you that if they don't have the extensions, the additions that were done to the existing structure, the house will be unlivable. You will not be able to have, you know, the space that they are using on the extension, basically they have the bathroom, they have a boiler room, a mechanical room, a storage room, things that if they were put inside the structure of the existing house, they won't even fit. The house will be, they won't even have any livable space. So I think also, actually, as the person before me said, to put a second floor on a structure like this, especially when you have a water table so high, and with an old structure will be very, very expensive. Almost you have to rebuild it. If you have to rebuild the property, if you have to rebuild the house from scratch, as the lawyer indicated, you will not comply with any of the setbacks. So you can't even build a house on the existing property, even though it's a large property, you cannot build it because when you computate all the setbacks and side yards, there is no space to build any house. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
My name is William Kern,
Good evening.
brother of the applicant. I just want to say my brother's put so much work and effort into that house. He's turned it into a complete asset for that little part of the neighborhood. And it's very telling when people drive by, everybody waves and everybody's happy to see everything that he's done at that house. There used to be, the house that's now owned by that gentleman over there was completely covered in bamboo, front to back to the street. Cleared it out, made it look nice. I think there's a little bit of bamboo left on the side. I don't know if that's really a fire issue or, trying to just clear it out. But I think everything that my brother's done to that house has made it beautiful, the property and the building itself. So hopefully you guys will agree.
Right.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone?
My name is Robert Mead. I own the house at 93 Magnolia. I'm also within 200 feet. I'm on the other side, next block over. I find nothing obtrusive about it. Come around the turn, it's always clean. It always has it decorated with flowers. I don't see anything obnoxious. That's it. I don't really see any issues with the appearance of it in the neighborhood as far as what the neighborhood looks like and how we appear down there.
Okay,
All right, thank
thank
you.
you very much. Anyone else? Last call. Anyone? Nope. Mr. Tramarko, would you like to come back?
Well, you can't say much after that. I will say that if there is bamboo that needs to be cut and it's on my client's property, we'll take it down. No problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
It's ironic. His father is probably the most cited case in New York zoning law, Cowan v. Kern.
Yeah.
It is the same kind of thing.
Look at all these people there.
Father. Yeah, but he was chairman for like 25 years.
Excuse me, if you're going to congregate, can you go into the library, please? We have more cases. Thank you very much.
And actually, that case went all the way to Court of Appeal.
Middle Country Road, St. James. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Middle Country Road and Broadley Avenue.
Hey, you take it outside, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Should I redo that?
Good evening.
I didn't even finish
Christina
reading it.
Bravin,
I didn't even finish reading it.
Morano. Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, 4 Hamilton Court, Quorum, agent for the applicant. Okay.
It's a big piece of site plan. Want to just hope for one?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I guess the power of attorney was submitted?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to make a request for an amendment to this application. Since filing, we obtained 2 permits for the 2 wall signs that were part of this variance. So the request would be for permission to install 1 wall sign for this variance. So if we can amend that application?
Right, where is the wall sign going?
The wall sign is going on the front wall along Broadley Avenue, the front fascia of the building,
All right.
on the southwest side of the building.
Okay, fine.
This one?
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
No, here, in the middle of nowhere.
No. Any?
Nope.
No. Is there anyone here like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Move to second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got it.
All right. Yes. Good. The next case on the agenda is case number 18081, Jacqueline Pagano, 14 Lonnie Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Lonnie Lane and Haskell Lane. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to permit an accessory structure in the required front yard, excuse me, for a proposed 16-foot by 32-foot in-ground pool. To reduce the minimum front yard on Haskell Lane from 50 feet to 24 feet, reduce the minimum front yard on Haskell Lane from 50 feet to 5 feet for a pool heater and equipment.
Good evening.
How are you? Mark Opisso, O-P-I-S-S-O, of Swim King Pools in Rocky Point.
Is the applicant here? Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Could you come up, please?
And, Mr. Chairman, do we have affidavits and
Oh, yeah.
mailings?
Do you have the
I
app?
have no.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Joseph Pagano,
And your address, please, sir.
14 Lonnie Lane, Smithtown, New York, 11787.
And would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I would.
Fine, thank you. Okay, could you state your name
Yes.
again? Spell your last name and give the address, please.
Mark Opisso, O-P-I-S-S-O, 471 Route 25A, Rocky Point, New York. Swim King Pools. So we are asking for 35 feet off the side yard and 24 feet off Haskell Lane, which would be considered the front yard. The pool equipment will be going 5 feet from the property line.
Anything else?
Do you guys have any other questions?
Well, I will find out. Does anybody have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning?
Do have a question, but I also have a comment. Do you happen to have the affidavit of posting for putting up the sign on the property?
Yes.
Thank you. Just one question for the applicant. Currently, there are a number of evergreen trees that screen the property right behind the fencing. Are you planning on maintaining those trees or taking them down to install the pool?
No, keeping them.
You're keeping
Yeah.
them? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Do you have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is number 18083, Laura Truns, 24 Pimlico Drive, Comac, the location of the property, the west side of Marie Court. Interesting, 371 feet south of Pimlico Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 8 feet for a proposed 20-foot by 34-foot in-ground pool.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You the applicant?
I am Laura Truns.
Good. Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Laura Truns, and 24 Pimlico Drive, Comac, New York.
And you would like this young lady to speak on your
Yes,
behalf?
please.
Okay, fine,
Thank
thank
you.
you. You can sit down if you'd like.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Nancy Lang, Lange, and my address, 31 Park Ridge Circle in Port Jeff Station, New York.
Thank you.
Tonight, we are here seeking your approval for 8-foot side setbacks for a proposed in-ground pool where 16 feet is required. I have submitted numerous photos of the subject property so you can see the landscape and the elevation of this property. You will notice the proposed site is the only area that is relatively level and does not have mature trees. This westerly side yard is screened from the neighbor by 50-foot line of tall mature bushes, and the neighbor has their garage located on that side as well. This proposed location would seem to have minimal impact to that neighbor. We explored other design options in trying to conform to the town setbacks, but discovered it would then create a large financial hardship, which would require numerous trees to be removed in the rear, retaining walls built to support the incline of the rear property, and lastly, the owners would be disappointed to severely alter their naturally wooded rear yard. We would feel that this would cause a greater adverse effect on the environment and to the surrounding properties by cutting down so many trees to conform than not. I have submitted estimates from a tree company and another for constructing the retaining walls, supporting the additional expenses that would be incurred. The Truns family has been looking forward to this pool project for their young family to enjoy. They have heard nothing but positive comments from their neighbors, and they're hoping for a positive decision from the board tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thanks.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I want that.
The next case is case number 18084, Joseph and Maxine Menino, 1 Beverly Road, Comac. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Beverly Road and Witchard Boulevard. Thank you. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the north side yard from 25 to 60%, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25 to 70%.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Basically, I'm here for a variance to legalize.
Could you state your name and address?
Yes,
for
I'm
the-
sorry. My name is Maxine Menino, and it's Mannino. I'm owner of the property. I am here to legalize the overpavement on the side property and the rear property. As to our application, whether the variance would or would not produce an impact on the adjacent properties or neighborhood, I believe that the variance would not produce an impact on the adjacent properties. The concrete patio, which is located on the north side of my home, which is my side yard, has property setbacks to the property line, has proper setbacks to the property line and provides ample runoff between adjoining properties. It has been a pre-existing patio, which was installed prior to our ownership of the home in March of 1999. Therefore, it has been here for 19 years. The structure is in very good condition, and it does not impose any liabilities to the surrounding area. The brickwork, which is also in the rear of the property, faces the east side, was constructed after the installation of our pool in 2005. It has been existing for approximately 13 years now. The brickwork was laid in sand, so it does afford for drainage through the bricks, and it was designed to guide water to appropriate areas where the drainage is available for proper runoff. There is no erosion of the land or any settlement issues that surround the structures at this time. With relation to the request, whether it is or is not substantial, I don't believe it's a substantial request to ask for the variance on the property. As I said, the pavement has been existing all these years. We've had no issues with any adjoining properties, and it does as well help our home structure. It does to redirect the water away from our home and from the pool areas, and it does have supported drainage. The pavement, the pavement structures support the space, and it does alleviate the erosion near our foundation and the pool structure that could occur. Areas of the concrete patio had been also cut back. When we purchased the property, there was an encroachment, which we were unaware of, but the property lines have been set straight, and we had cut back the patio to make sure that there's proper setback to facilitate ample drainage. As far as the benefit, that it cannot be achieved by an alternate because the pavement serves as a secure and safe foundation for many uses. The concrete is in good condition and is stained to match our brick color. We have intricate patterns. We've incorporated into the space, which accentuate and add beauty to our outdoor environment. The pavement bricks, they do protect my home, as I had mentioned, from any kind of water issues. The variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment because the paved areas are constructed to guide the water to areas that provide adequate runoff. The pavement has been in place, as I said, for over 13 years, and we do not have any problems with the environment to date in our surrounding area. The difficulty that would have been created originally with a concrete patio was, as to my knowledge, was installed by the original owner of the home, which would have been over 40 years ago. It's a very strong, sturdy concrete patio. It's like over 4 inches thick. It provides for a very safe, environment for the back of our home. And it does also, allow, it's kind of pointed away from the home so that it does, again, protect my home from any type of water. In 2005, we did construct the brick area around the pool, and we were unaware when we put it in that there were any over-pavement codes at the time of the installation. We were not made aware of that, and didn't know about it. The brick area does guide the water away from the pool and our home, and removing that structure could cause some erosion and runoff issues that may direct themselves towards the house and pool and cause difficulties to our existing space. You know, the fact is that we have a very little, because we're on a corner, we have a very little side yard and a very little rear yard, and then putting in the pool, we really don't have a lot of space to, you know, entertain or, you know, do what we do out there. So, you know, I would look for hopefully a favorable, you know, decision, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions? No? Planning?
It is paving. I do have a question for the applicant, though. Are there any dry wells or French drains installed on the property that retain any stormwater runoff from a heavy storm, a rainstorm, whereby it wouldn't direct the water either onto adjacent properties or out into the street?
We do have a drain that we installed with a PCV valve that runs from the north side of the property all the way to the front driveway, on top of our driveway at the top of the house line, and then it runs down the driveway. So, well, into our property in the front,
Okay.
into our flower beds, actually.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Yep, come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Mara, M-A-R-R-A. My husband, John Mara, and I live at 3 Beverly, the property that is directly up against the concrete wall and pool area. We would disagree with a lot of what was stated. We moved into our house with our 3 young children 7 years ago. And when we did, we had an affidavit signed that stated that the cement patio was 6.5 feet by 40 feet cemented onto our property, which the current owners signed, acknowledging that. It took many years for that to be corrected. When we did correct it, it caused some difficulties in deciding about water and drainage. When we first moved into the home, we were told by the current owners that their property was flooding into the basement and that it was due to our property line being at the wrong level. In the first 3 years of living in our home, we added a French drain on our property to help divert the water from them. They continued to complain that they were still flooding. We have since had a professional retaining wall built down the entire property line, 3 feet in on our side. They would not agree to have it on the property line, although there were concerns of the cement patio and brick from both our professional cement company, architect, as well as the town members that came to look at the property after the retaining wall was put up. Even after the retaining wall and the French drain that had been put in on our property, there continues to be water damage that is on record in town from their complaint. Excuse me. And the cement was not cut back a full foot from our fence lines until recent, and even after that, there has been a complaint issued for water damage. The complaint has always been on file, even prior to us buying our home right next door, that the water from their property flows into their home. We've had, excuse me, as I've stated, 3 professionals tell us that the reason that they are having water issues is because there's not proper drainage on their property. We feel that 4 out of the 5 of the variance considerations are really a trouble for us. However, we don't mind that the property is paved and have a pool. The reason that we're here today is because we would just like to see that either one of 2 things occur if the variance is approved. One being that our property would no longer be liable for water damage, acknowledging that the cement would be going from the 25% allotted up to 60% and 70% respectively, which is not common in our neighborhood, which is right along the Greenbelt. And we would like it to be somehow on record that 3 Beverly would not be liable for water damage continuing to happen at 1 Beverly, and that we have done just about everything we can on our end between French drains and retaining walls to prevent water damage to their property. But we would also like to see that they have some form of professional drainage looked at to prevent this in the future. And the reason is because their house has been on the market for sale for quite some time, and they plan on selling. And they have made it very clear to us and a couple of other people that they do not wish to put money into the home right now for selling. We are a young family with a 3, a 5, and a 7-year-old. I own a local company in the neighborhood. We plan on being here for a very long time. And the last thing that we would like to see is a new neighbor move into this neighborhood that is a very young and growing neighborhood and have water issues that are then again pushed back onto the fault of our property when we are clearly being told by professional engineers, architects, townspeople that it is due to lack of drainage that this is occurring on their property. And that is why we're here.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is the water coming from their property onto your property?
It's very hard to tell because the water, our property is higher, the elevation, and so we corrected that by having it professionally leveled and then the retaining walls built. We also had the French drain on our end, which for a long time helped the situation, but they still didn't have drainage.
Where is the water going?
Into their home. It's going into their
But
home.
it's not going into your home.
No, because we have drainage on our property. We have French drains on our property. We had the elevation done by a professional company. We just had a pool installed. We have dry wells.
Okay.
We have installed in 7 years everything that we have needed for our side, and our house lines with the Greenbelt. So one property side of our Greenbelt and the other is 1 Beverly. And so there's just nowhere for the water to go on their property because it's all brick and cement. What you're looking at, that white space, is the front of Beverly Road. So that's the only lawn that there is. They have the 2 existing driveways, and the one that's closest to our property is where they're saying their water drains to. But if that was the case, where they're flooding is off of that cement patio. So as we said, we don't want anyone to have to remove their patio. We don't want them to have to redo their bricks. The house is lovely. We would love a new young family to come in and enjoy it and enjoy the neighborhood. We just want to make sure that what it needs to be done is done the right way so that the water damage doesn't continue to affect their home, but also so that way when they do sell, another family doesn't have to have that come in and it fall back on us again. And so that's what we're asking is considered, that if the variance is put through, that it's put through with some form of protection for our household as well as a new family that is going to be coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard? Anybody else in the audience want to be heard? Nope. All right, want to come back up and answer their concerns? No.
I would like to say some things about what was said. Our neighbors did mention that they did put in a French drain. When they first moved into the house about 7, 8 years ago, my neighbor happened to own previously a demolition company and had his own Bobcat. And he brought it onto the property. He was preparing his property for a 1-year birthday party for his daughter and brought in a ton of dirt that he laid down on the property. Now, we are on a hill like this, and I am at the lowest point on all 3 different levels coming into this corner where I live. They are on a much higher elevated level. We never had any kind of major rainfall into our basement. People have basements. There's going to be sometimes water. If a gutter gets full, you'll have water that leaks into your basement. We've had that. But after they had added that dirt to the property, I had the blackest, dirtiest water in my basement. I had about 3 feet of water up against the back of my house. As new neighbors, we didn't want to make a big deal out of it. We figured, we're just going to work it through. And, they were more than gracious helping to try to pump out the water when it all came running down to us. So I'm not going to say anything that was bad. They were trying to help us out. But he did have to install a French drain. And it was because of the fact that he had elevated the property line without any kind of permits or any kind of excavation, inspections. And we had problems. And we probably had 2 or 3 floods. And then the grass grew in, everything was fine, and we were good. So we then got word that they were putting in this pool. They, happened to discussed with us that they wanted to put in a retaining wall on the property line. Now, if you look at the property, we're very close in proximity from their house to our house. In doing so, putting the actual retaining wall on the property line would be very intrusive to my immediate back. I was very concerned how high they were going to build it and what was going to actually happen. With that, they ended up going on their own and, putting in the retaining wall. And they did dig out the pool, and when they dug out the pool, they left all the soil on the property. Nothing had been removed until I guess they were going to level out and fill in and do what they had to do. And what they did is they moved the dirt and the soil to the front of the property as well. So it didn't just, elevate the rear and the side, but it also elevated the front. So now what happened was their front yard actually seeped into my front yard, and the sand from their property came running into my front yard, then ran down my side yard into my rear yard. So everything was just running downhill to me. I called up the town. I was just like, wanted to find out if they had any kind of an excavation permit, and they didn't. So I filed a complaint, and, look, it is what it is. I filed a complaint, and they came in, and it was verified that there was an actual complaint, and then it was forwarded to the engineering department. So as far as I know at this point, they're supposed to have a civil engineer just, watching over their excavation, because they are at a higher level, and they have caused problems for me in the past. I mean, again, I don't want to cause any troubles for them, but certainly I have done, my property actually doesn't have a problem. It does go off. And any flooding that occurs usually goes to the ends of the concrete slab and the ends of the brick area, and it's just so overwhelming because it comes right from their front yard into my yard. It's just something that, they can't control it when it gets that bad. There should be some type of retaining wall. It should be something to protect me. And I am trying to protect the next buyer because I don't want them to have to experience what I experience.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
No.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18087. Jennifer Terra Firma, 12 Nichols Road, Wisconsin. Woo, okay. The location of the property, the west side of Nichols Road, 221 feet north of Town Line Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard from 35 feet to 23 feet, which is existing, reduce total side yards from 28 feet to 22 feet for an existing 75 square foot first floor addition.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer Terra Firma, owner at 12 Nichols Road, Nesconset, New York. I'm here again. I was actually here back in November for a variance for our expanded driveway that was granted, so thank you. Unfortunately, an existing 75 square foot rear addition was overlooked by the building department, so we now back again for a variance. The variance would not produce an impact on adjacent properties or the neighborhood because this first floor 75 square foot addition simply just corners off a previous 1986 addition, which is our family room. It's not substantial because it's simply, again, cornering off and the previous 1986 addition. It's also, the benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative because it's currently our walk-in closet. Our house has little to no closet space, so to not have it would be very disadvantageous for us. And the variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment. Again, it's an existing, probably several decades old 75 square foot addition. And the difficulty was not created by myself or my husband. Again, this was done a number of years ago, and we simply just want to legalize an already existing decades-old rear addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, number 18088, Alejandro Ciamarella, 3 Kim Place, Kings Park. The location of the property, the north side of Kim Place, 101 feet east of Lawrence Road. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard from 75 feet to 72 feet for a proposed 153-square-foot sunroom.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, hi. John Bracco, architect on behalf of the applicant.
Do you have power of attorney?
Excuse me?
Do you have power of attorney? Or is the applicant here?
The applicant was not able to make it tonight. I am the contact person on the application. I did submit, I did execute the
Yeah, but do you have
application.
a power of attorney to speak on his behalf?
I do not have something formally in writing, no.
Really can't hear the case.
Okay. I mean, I was allowed to execute the application. I'm the contact person on the application.
Those are the forms. You're actually speaking on his behalf. We
Right.
need something with his signature on it that says
Okay.
he's authorizing you to speak on his behalf.
Okay, there was nothing saying that I had to have something to that effect in the... Okay. Well, can I ask that the board hear the case and we'll bring a notarized affidavit granting them, giving me right to speak?
You have to come back anyway, sir.
Okay. And what would be the procedure, just?
Uh,
I mean, I'll get an affidavit allowing me to...
All right, if you get the power of attorney,
Right.
We'll put you on for next
the
meeting.
next hearing?
Which
Okay.
is the 22nd.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Second?
Okay.
And you can either bring in the power of attorney
Okay.
or the applicant himself.
Okay, because
Yeah.
they're not able
I
to...
mean, you've heard me, ask
Yeah, yeah.
people for, are you the applicant? And then
Right,
this
exactly.
gentleman, this
Yep.
young lady speak on your behalf.
Okay.
You know?
All right, so I'll have them sign and notarize something granting me, that they're granting me
There's a form.
permission
You
to
have to
speak on
get
their
the
behalf.
form.
Okay, I'll get the
It's a
form.
very specific form.
Okay, and the town has that form? I
No,
can
we
get-
do
oh,
not. It's a Blumberg form,
Uh-huh,
and it's available from any legal stationery store. I believe John Stanley in downtown Smithtown
Uh-huh.
carries that form. If
Okay.
you tell someone who works there what you need it for, they'll know exactly what to give you.
You might be able to download it online.
okay, all right, thank you.
Look up Bloomberg Legal Forms.
Okay,
And,
BLUMBERG.
and you won't have to do any mailings for the next hearing. However, you will have to repost a sign
okay,
for 5 full days prior to the actual hearing date.
Okay.
And you will have to do another affidavit of posting
okay.
and bring that with you to that hearing.
All right?
Okay,
So
thank
it'll be
you.
January 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Nice job pushing the downtown business plan.
You like that? You like that?
Online,
So I'm trying to keep the business in town.
it's a shame. I mean, it's such a de minimis variance.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the
We have to
board.
read the case
I
first.
have to read the case. The next case is case number 18089, Teresa Sheehan, 17 Valley Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the east side of Valley Avenue, 609 feet south of Oakside Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 24 feet to 19 feet for existing 36-square-foot first and second floor additions. Reduce the minimum rear yard from 100 feet to 53 feet for an existing 388-square-foot first floor addition and 348-square-foot second floor addition. Reduce the minimum rear yard from 100 feet to 65 feet for an existing 261 square foot first floor front addition. Reduce the minimum distance to the rear lot line from 10 feet to 8 feet for an existing 356 square foot detached garage. Add to a non-conforming structure for all of the existing additions.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Happy New Year to you all. My name is Christina Fry, an attorney with offices at 7 Pine Ridge Drive, Smithtown, New York. On behalf of the applicant, Michael and Teresa Sheehan. Don't let Mr. Donadio scare you with all of that. It's not as bad as it sounds. I did try to shade the survey somewhat to show what the portions were that do need the side yard and rear yard setbacks. With a little history as to this structure, the 24 by approximately 33-foot rectangular portion on the west side of the property exists prior to 1937, and what is now a garage in the rear existed legally as a carport and converted sometime before my homeowner's ownership of the property. That existed in 1957. Sometime in 1986, the remainder of the property not shaded was added onto, and the applicant was before this board for a variance because this structure never met R43 rear yard setbacks. The 9-foot piece in the side yard that requires the side yard relief, that was the stoop that led into the early structure, the pre-1937 structure. The first floor of that really exists as concrete. It's no addition necessarily to the first floor. And the second floor was made a closet in what now is a bedroom. So we're asking for relief from the side yard setbacks under R43 standards of 24 feet to 19 feet. The rear addition that is shaded with a 53-foot rear yard setback, that is a first and second story addition for a dining room and a loft above. Those were built sometime after 2002, probably 2003, as an addition to the home to fill in the gap between the early structure and the 1986 structure. We are hereby requesting a reduction in the minimum rear yard from 100 feet under R43 standards to 53 feet for that existing first floor rear addition of 388 square feet, and the second floor above of 348 square feet. In addition, there was a front bedroom added or relocated to the front of the house. It meets front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, but it did not meet rear yard setbacks from the corner of the structure. It is 65 feet from the rear yard. So we're also requesting relief from the rear yard from 100 feet to 65 feet for that portion of the additional existing first floor addition of 261 square feet. Again, these are all, the structure itself lawfully exists as non-conforming. And then the garage that was converted from a carport to a garage, while it legally existed, we did encroach into the 10-foot distance required and are now 8-foot because of the additional cement blocking that was used to convert the carport, which was made of steel, to give it a foundation, a cement foundation. So that's where the request from 10 feet to 8 feet comes from. Certainly, the additions that have been made to this house and the many non-conforming setbacks do not produce any undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. The applicant could not have achieved the additions to the structure in any other way. As you can see, even a front yard addition brought us issues with the rear yard setbacks. And the area variance, I don't believe is substantial in this case because it is a non-conforming structure and it never met setbacks to begin with. Certainly won't have an adverse effect on the environment as the uses of the materials on the property or none other than those that are used in regular construction. And the difficulty, the rear was self-created, but the other additions were not self-created. My client encountered those prior to their ownership. And while while it was self-created, that's not a determinative factor. We're asking the board to grant the relief requested this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
The next case on the agenda is case number 1-18062, Frank Ervolino, 56 Dilmont Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property, the south side of Dilmont Drive, 603 feet west of Pineacre Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the front yard from 50 feet to 10 feet for a proposed 6-foot fence with wall. Permit a fence wall berm greater than 4 feet in the required front yard. Reduce the setback of a 6-foot fence to a 5-foot retaining wall from 5 feet to 1 foot. Decrease the minimum distance of a 5-foot retaining wall from the property line from 5 feet to 0. Permit a fence on top of a 5-foot wall, retaining wall, to be over 6 feet to 11 feet in the rear yard.
Good evening.
Good evening. Frank Ervolino, 56 Dilmont Drive.
And you would like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carmine Grasso from Cataldo Grasso Architects, office at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I submitted the certified mail receipts and the affidavits of mailing and posting. We were here back on November 27th for the variance requests for the retaining walls and the fences, as indicated by Mr. Donadio. At that point, there was a little confusion as to the variance request for the fence in the front yard. So what I'll do is just give a brief review of what we were here for the last time for the retaining walls. The retaining wall in the rear yard is on the property line, and it has a maximum height of 5 feet. It's only 5 feet in one location. It dips down in that location. At one end of the wall, it's 8 inches off the ground, and at the other corner, it's 3 feet high. The wall serves two purposes. It levels the client's property in the rear, which makes it more useful for him, and it also eliminates the runoff from his property that was going onto his neighbor's property prior to the installation of the wall. The wall has definitely improved the conditions for both the client, my client, and his neighbor. The 6-foot fence at the top of the wall was installed by my client as a continuation of the fencing around the rest of his property. There's a 6-foot fence going along that side of the property as well, and he just continued that along. It provides safety. The fence provides safety so a person couldn't accidentally step off the side of the wall. As I had stated last time when I was here, my client owns a landscaping business, and he plans to provide a dense buffer of evergreens along that side, on his side of the fence, so to prevent any adverse effects or undesirable look to the neighbor's property. And I think after we had discussed it, everyone seemed to be I shouldn't say in agreement, but we seem to have the retaining wall issue under control. Where we ran into a problem last time when I was here was the fence in the front yard. My client had originally proposed for a 5-foot high fence with 5-foot 3-inch piers, and where we ran into the issue was the gate at the fence actually has a bell curve on it, so the gate goes up to 6 feet in height at one point right in the center. It starts off at 5 feet and curves up to 6 feet, excuse me. So we changed the request, so we're asking for a 6-foot fence, in knowing that it's only the one portion of the gate that's actually going to be 6 feet. There was one other change in our request. When we were here originally, we had stated that the setback of the fence was going to be 20 feet from the front property line. That was just a little misunderstanding by my client. He thought the setback was supposed to be from the street line, and he actually started to install the foundations for the piers, and he had set them back 20 feet from the front, from the street line, which is actually 10 feet from the property line. So the request was changed to 10 feet, a 10-foot setback, and a 6-foot fence. We still feel that this fence is going to be a very attractive-looking fence. I had submitted some renderings that my client had done, showing how the fence is going to appear, and it's going to have some nice plantings in front of it. But have a row of boxwoods along the front of it, and then in a couple of spaces there'll also be some trees. We think it's going to be a benefit to the neighborhood. It's going to be a benefit to my client's property. It's going to help the appeal of his property. The piers on the fence we stated last time, I just want to reiterate that they're going to match the stonework that's on the house right now. So all in all, it's going to be a benefit, we feel, to the neighborhood, and it's going to be an attractive addition. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All the front piers have been installed?
Yes, partially. What my client did was he understands that he can have a 4-foot high fence without needing a permit, so he installed piers at this point that are 4 feet high, with the anticipation that if he does get this approved, he can finish them off at the 5'3" height for the piers, and then install the 5-foot fence. He actually started installing the piers because you're hitting the winter weather, although it hasn't been that cold out, which is good. But in some cases, but he started installing the piers so that he would not have to worry about the frost and be able to get the fence in before it got too cold.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thanks.
Planning?
Just a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman. Just to let the other board members know, the chairman and I did actually do a site inspection yesterday morning of the site, and we did look at the neighborhood. The house to the west, I believe,
Yes.
has very similar piers installed in their front yard. In fact, I think they're right on the front property line. I can't tell the exact height of those piers, but they look to be at least 4 feet high. Very similar to what the applicant has already installed, but closer to the road than what his piers are. The neighborhood over there is a mixture of large lots on both sides of Dilmont, and quite a bit of landscaping, natural vegetation, and trees in the front yard. So literally right in the front yard near the road. So proposing the fence, in addition to doing the landscaping that I believe Carmine mentioned that the applicant would be doing, although the fence might be a little bit out of character because most people don't have fences that far front in the front yard, the landscaping would certainly be within the character of the area. The piers match the piers to the next door neighbor, although his doesn't have fencing connecting the piers together. Just to let the board be aware of that.
Right. Thank you. Certainly.
Just want to say that the piers are also going to be spaced. There's going to be 3 sections of fence between each pier. It's not going to be like an abundance of piers. So that's actually 6, 12, 18 feet.
Right.
18,
We were
20
there,
feet.
we saw
Okay,
that.
okay,
It's
sorry,
very
okay.
attractive.
Okay.
You know, yours is set back further than the neighbors. That was the point that we tried
All
to
right.
make. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too now.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18036, Daniel Kanzenberg, 3 Pimlico Court, Comac. The location of the property, the north side of Pimlico Court, 110 feet west of Pimlico Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the minimum setback of a fence from a retaining wall from 3 feet to 0, to decrease the minimum setback of retaining walls from the property line from 3 feet to 0.
Good evening.
Can you hear me? I'm Dan Kansberg from, I live at 3 Pimlico Court in Comac. We're here for round 3.
Yes, you are.
This is my fiance Kathy. She'll do the talking.
Hi, I'm Kathy Fraser, Fraser. I also live at 3 Pimlico Court. Hopefully, third time's the charm. From the last time we were here, we were told to get a new survey that showed everything, that the walls and the fence are all contained on our property, which the survey clearly indicates. So hopefully that's the last of what's needed. If you guys want to take a second to review it and then ask me questions, you can.
All right. Anyone have any questions?
I just have a comment. Thank you for getting the survey, because now it's quite clear.
We hope
I'm sorry I didn't bring it last time.
Planning? Nope, you're good? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Nope. Come on up. Good evening.
My name is Karen Amato, A-M-A-T-O. It's my husband, Jimmy.
James Amato.
We live at 16 Pimlico Drive in Comac. Last time we were here, we had brought a preliminary survey. We now have the stamped one. It is on file with your office, but if I could present this. I also have.
Basically, we have conflicting surveys.
I'm sorry?
We have conflicting surveys. Our survey shows a retaining wall 2 feet on our property. Our property runs behind the applicant's property.
That email is from our surveyor, indicating that he spoke with their surveyor. They both agree that there are no monuments on the south side of our property from which to measure, but our surveyor was able to measure from the north monuments, and he stands by his survey.
So now it's up to the town, I guess.
Yes. Two different
You
surveys.
can see both of them.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is to, well, I'll give the board a choice, either to close the hearing or reserve decision or adjourn. I think at least two things need to occur here. One is both surveyors need to compare their notes.
Well, our surveyor did give his file to their surveyor. He did not receive anything back. He indicates that in the email that he sent.
They can work it out fine.
Our surveyors have spoken, and they
Well, could you come up? We just have to get everything on the record.
Our surveyors spoke, and they basically agreed to disagree.
Right,
They
that's
did
what
agree to the fact that the area monuments were missing and whatever, but my surveyor said he stood by his survey. He's been in business a lot longer than their surveyor, 2 years experience versus 20 years experience. And, you know, again, he came to the property and redid the survey 3 times.
Well, your suggestion of close the case, reserve decision, or make a decision, either way, I think this becomes a civil matter
Yeah, then it becomes a
outside of
civil
the town of Smithtown.
It could, Mr. Tanzi, very well be a civil matter, and we're not here to legalize any encroachments if there are any.
Correct.
Okay? We can grant variances up to the property line, but we cannot legalize an encroachment. My suggestion, and I think Blaze wouldn't have no objection, is that we either adjourn or close, and let's go inspect it ourselves first, and see what the property line looks like, and then it's on a decision calendar, and you can make a decision at that point.
Well, in reading this email, going back and forth between the two surveyors, part of the problem is there's no monuments there.
But this is a high,
Yeah,
this
you
is.
can't define where the property line is.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman, but this is a very visible encroachment if.
Yeah, no, we understand it. I thought there was some kind of agreement between.
If it
is.
My
Pass that
point
stick, okay.
that I was making is whether we approve to 0 or not approve to 0 doesn't change where the wall is.
That is correct. That is
So for the town to get involved in a property line dispute, I
Correct.
don't think benefits
Not appropriate
anyone.
for us.
I think that if we have a survey that says it's 0, even though there's one that says it's over 0, we can grant the 0. There's nothing more we can do as a board. So
And
if
then it
we
becomes
say
a civil
0,
matter.
it's approved to 0.
Correct.
Whatever happens outside of the town of Smithtown is between neighbors, and I think that's the only way it could ever be.
And that's, as I said earlier, the board cannot legalize an encroachment, we can only grant a variance up
Right.
to the property line, and Mr. Tanzi is correct.
Can I say something, please? The applicants were aware of the setback requirement, and they chose to ignore that. So I would ask that you deny the variance, because we had a discussion with them on what they needed to do. We presented them with the town's requirements the day that they started their wall, and they chose not to do the right thing. They had the opportunity to do the right thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll just close it.
Yeah, I think so.
Can I have a motion to close this application, please?
So moved.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
That's our last case?
Yes.
I think we refer.
I go home.
We give both
We have to
surveys
go
the
through
town
everything
attorney.
again.
We ask if there's any liability the town could wind up.
If you want, you're more than welcome, but I would just call the town tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I just
don't,
wouldn't want to make a decision because she's requesting us.
there'll be no decision on yours tonight, so, yeah. Yeah, good night. Good night. You could call the town tomorrow morning.
It basically enforces our decision though.
Good night now.
You don't think we'll make a decision on it?
Yeah, prove it to 0.
Yeah.
And that concludes our hearing for tonight.